Our guest today is someone fighting the good fight. You may not know her now, but you will. She's a mother, a leader, and she's someone that tirelessly works on changing the world one kid at a time. She is fixated on the never-ending goal of making sure this world is safer for our kids. She serves as the Chief Marketing Officer and Chief People Officer at Bark Technologies. Author of Parenting in a Tech World, a bestseller, and project lead on the documentary Childhood 2.0. It is with immense gratitude that I welcome Titania Jordan to the 80/20 podcast.
That was so sweet. Thank you.
Thank you for spending your time. I appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. So we like to just start off a little silly, a little goofy. Your favorite delectable sweet. Go.
Delectable, meaning like not nerds and not peanut butter cups.
No, I mean we cannot. We are not sponsored by Reese's, so we're gonna have to go a little bit more niche there.
Oh no! If we're doing peanut butter cups, it's just in peanut butter cups. Like, let's get one thing straight there. Delectable. Oh, the white chocolate cake from A Piece of Cake. That's delectable.
Okay.
Yeah, good choice. White chocolate is that's often superior to the milk chocolate, in my opinion. But everybody see exactly. Some people have the different reactions, but the white chocolate cookies and cream Hershey bar that was a favorite growing up.
Oh yeah.
And so keep it with the silly theme. And I do make music myself, but I'm curious, and you may not have a single one, but what is your favorite trap song at this moment in time?
Okay. Is Waukesha a trap song?
I've never heard of it, but it sounds like it probably is. I'll look it up after this, but I feel like that's probably a trap song. Waukesha,
It's probably not a technical name, but that's watch me put my heart in this cup. Never mind. This is not the time for me to be.
No, take it. Come on, hit it. Come on, you got it. It's all
anyway,
you.
Yeah, I'm going to text it to James, and then you can confirm if it is indeed a trap song or just something that they play on Hot 107.9 and B103 here in Atlanta.
Those are the trap stations. So yes, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, must be Waukesha.
Oh man, that's funny. Okay, so Sae'Von, you want to go ahead and kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Just for the people who are a little unfamiliar, so we can go ahead and get people up to speed, would you mind explaining or sharing with everyone what Bark is and what it is that you do and how you've helped build that company up?
So thank you for asking. Thank you for having me. Bark is technology that keeps children safer online, and because of that, in real life. Kids today are spending, goodness gracious, upwards of 8 hours a day online, like not playing outside. They're like in a screen. And so their worlds are in a screen, and the whole world is also in a screen. And so what Bark does is uses artificial intelligence, some very, very intuitive machine learning algorithms to scan their connected devices and accounts, over 30 social media accounts, in fact, as well as text messaging and email. It scans those for digital dangers or potential problems, whether it's cyberbullying and profanity to some really intense things like suicidal ideation and online predation. When our algorithm detects those dangers, it then sends the parent or caregiver an alert via text or email, not only with the problem, like, hey, here's what happened on XYZ platform, but we also give best recommended next steps for how to address, because I'm the first parent in the history of parenting on this planet, at least, that has had to deal with digital parenting like this. We didn't grow up having Instagram in middle school. I had AOL chat rooms, but that was about it. And there were dangers there, but not like there is today. So that's what Bark is. Any questions there before I move on to how I do what I do and what do I do there?
No, you can just flow into that and we'll come back and pull at the threads.
Okay. Cool. Okay. In terms of, so this is great. I was actually a co-founder at a startup that was an anonymous platform, but it wasn't like Yik Yak in that we had misogyny and racism and all kinds of terrible things there. We actually had a really finely moderated community, and we kicked anybody out if they just did one thing that was not cool. So I had this anonymous platform that I built. I was working out of the Atlanta Tech Village, and Brian Basin, the CEO of Bark, reached out to me, and we were talking about helping to train his algorithms with our community. And that was a cool conversation. It didn't materialize. And then a few months later, he was not able to present at Techstars Atlanta. Bark was selected as one of the Techstars companies for the Atlanta cohort, and they have Techstars Demo Day. And every founder or partner, gets up and presents, and he wasn't able to do it. And he called me up and asked me if I would do it. And I was like, sure. I'm making a very long story very, very short. But essentially, I had to learn all about Bark, the inner workings of Bark, over the course of like 14 days, and be so confident about it that I could speak to a room full of 900 people at the Masquerade in Atlanta. And these are people that were going to potentially write us, $500,000 to $1 million checks to keep our company going. I say our company, I wasn't even a part of it yet, really. I mean, I kind of was, but so no pressure, just a lot of pressure. It was terrifying. But I printed out, like literally printed out every slide, put it on my wall, and I just those memes where the people are like looking at the strings crossing. That was like me for 2 weeks, just like soaking it in. And I crushed it. I'm okay on a stage, and I did well, and that was great. And after digging deep into the business, from that standpoint, I was like, I can't not be a part of this. So I asked him if I could become a greater part of it, and he asked me if I would become a greater part of it. And that was over 5 years ago. And I haven't looked back. And I know I glossed over a bunch of things, but the reason when I started talking about this, I kind of had like a twinkle in my eye and a giggle, is because that previous startup, I won't even name it because it doesn't deserve to be named. It had no revenue model, and there was a bit of a toxic culture within it. And at the time, because it was my idea, I had based my whole identity around it. Like, we had gotten press, everybody loved it. They're like, "Oh, you started this app," and like, "Wow, it's so great." And like, that was my whole identity. And when I realized like it wasn't going to work, like things were not going to work out, and I realized it had to die. Basically, I kind of died with it. And then I was like, what is my point? Why am I here? What am I going to do? I have to go work for somebody now? Like, whoa, this is not good. I was not in a good place. And then Brian reaches out, and it was like, oh, like there was this bridge, there was this path. I was like, oh, wait, maybe I can still work in startup land and it not be toxic. And there will be a paycheck. Like, that's amazing. And like a revenue model. And more important than all of that, a mission and a purpose. Like, building tech with people that have proven experience and have done it before. Bark is Brian's fourth startup. He's had 3 successful exits before that. And with this mission of protecting kids and empowering families, like, okay, all right, life, let's do this again. Like, it was great. And it still is.
What does your title, Chief People Officer, mean? I understand what CMO means, but what the heck does CPO mean?
So CPO actually stands for Chief Parenting Officer.
Oh, and I thought it was people officer.
I know. Well, it's fun when you have CPO in your title because it's the product, it's people, it's parenting in this case. So, yeah, I mean that's our demographic, and I'm the chief parent officer.
You're the chief of the tribe of parents.
Okay, so with that, because I'm thinking about what chief people officer usually is, and to my understanding, that's usually something that's much more internal. You kind of deal with, it's almost like head of HR in a way.
Right.
So in your chief parenting role, does that basically mean that you are the primary liaison directly with the parents? Because I imagine at the same time, you're probably a bit busy to be dealing with every parent that has a qualm or question. So how does that work out in your situation?
It's a very evolving title. It's a great question. What it means is I represent the voice of the parents internally to our team. Not everybody who works at Bark is a parent. I represent the voice of our company and the parents to media. So whenever somebody, reaches out and wants me to talk about, hey, Instagram's launching, an app for kids. What do you think? That's where I come in. Also, because we already had a CMO when I joined Bark, that just felt like the best title for me at the time.
Okay, excellent. So you got to keep the CPO title, and you were able to. Hey, you came here bossed up, didn't you?
You don't get what you don't ask for.
There it is.
That's a fact.
Trait agreeableness. So, I mean, with Bark, there's a lot of moving parts. You do a lot of media. You talk to the public a whole lot. But can we go back to Childhood 2.0? Can we go back to how that came about, what that was about? I think that there's a lot of people that may be listening to this, may see these snippets on Instagram, may see this on YouTube, that would derive big benefit from having consumed that content by the nature of what it is. But can you walk us through how y'all got there?
Oh my gosh, yeah. That documentary is so freaking powerful. And, they're really, there's so many great documentaries out there that kind of change the way humans behave and make choices. Forks Over Knives, Super Size Me, ones featuring, the water crisis in Flint, Michigan. Like there's, Aaron Brockovich, like there's films that change people and humanity for the better. And I feel that Childhood 2.0 is one of those. And it looks at basically how childhood was up until about the year 2000, and then how it has changed so much from the year 2000 until now. It is literally the second type of childhood that kids are dealing with and families are dealing with. And it's about 90 minutes in length. It's free. Anybody can watch it on YouTube and a variety of places. Really, the only place it doesn't live is Netflix yet. Hoping they'll pick it up. But not only do you hear from people like me and our CEO, Brian Basin, and child health and wellness experts, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, parents, you hear from kids. And that is what really guts people when they hear from, 7 and 10-year-olds talking about not wanting to be on the planet anymore because they're being bullied. When you hear from 12 and 14-year-old girls talking about the pressure to send nudes, or how their peers have all consumed pornography by the time they're in 8th grade. We our investigation where we went undercover as an 11-year-old on Instagram and ended up meeting up in real life undercover with a predator. That's featured in there. That's chilling. It really, it doesn't hold back. It doesn't hold back any punches. It really shows you what it's like to be a kid today online, all the various issues that they're encountering. And you hear again, both from adults and experts and kids who I'd say are experts as well.
And so as y'all were featured in that documentary, after y'all kind of went through that whole process, because I believe that sometimes when you're involved in creating something, whether it be your part in being featured in this documentary and obviously just building the technology, was there a period where y'all were able to step back and then kind of see what you all were doing from a different light? And if so, how did that inform the way that y'all went forward in what y'all wanted to add to Bark, any changes you thought might be necessary? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, what was really interesting, and it went viral, that the predator part of the film, it's about 9.5 minutes, where we went undercover as an 11-year-old, and within moments heard from adult men that wanted to contact her, not just for friendly reasons. That snippet of the documentary went so viral. It was viewed over 17 million times just on YouTube alone. Good Morning America covered it. Dr. Oz covered it. It blew up. It blew up. And it's because people need to see something and experience something in first person sometimes before they truly understand it. We could tell people all day long about our stats. We've escalated over 1,000 predators to law enforcement, and people are like, wow, but it doesn't hit them emotionally. They don't realize just how easily it could happen to their own families within their houses, until you show them the screens, show them on Instagram and on other platforms, like where this is happening and how you can just video call somebody and how you can land in their DMs. Like, people got to see it. They really got to see it to get shook and be like, oh, wow. Like, oh gosh, and I put this thing in my kid's hand and they're just in their room for hours at a time. I don't know who they're talking to. And they might not tell me because they might be scared or ashamed or coerced or bullied. Like, so it, in order to answer your question, like, it helped us see how when you have very powerful information, if it's not resonating, you've got to think of a different way to tell that story, because everybody learns a little differently. It helped our algorithms as well, because when you have firsthand experience as the child interacting with multiple predators, your algorithm can get even smarter to pick up the nuances of grooming and predation. It helped place more accountability on the largest platforms in the world, as well as legislators and caregivers, to really do something about it, because I don't think people just realize how prevalent it was. A lot of the issues that we alert parents for, they don't think it can happen to them until it does. And then you're in, instead of prevention mode, you're in, okay, let's fix it mode, which is not a good mode to be in.
It makes a lot of sense. And even personally, this isn't something we talk about too much on this podcast, but I think it was maybe about 2015 or 2016, because I was just researching a lot of things. And I didn't realize how prevalent pedophilia was. And I'll say the word. I know the word makes some people uncomfortable even, which is kind of crazy, because how do you touch a topic without just saying what it is? And I'm curious, with y'all's platform, and I don't know if this is data y'all can share or not, but what, if you had to rank maybe the top 4 things that you find in terms of prevalence of behaviors that need warning to parents, how does it rank? Because there's suicide, there's pedophilia, there's bullying. Just what do y'all find to be kind of the most frequent or the most intense hierarchy of those things?
That's a great question. I'm actually going to look at our reporting, at our abuse type. That's what we call them. And just see what's most prevalent. So I'm just looking at a sample of October. So October of 2021, over the month, we had 2.4 million alerts sent out around bullying, 2.2 million alerts sent out around drug and alcohol related content, 3.4 million alerts around profanity. I giggle at that because, like, when my son was 9, I was like, oh, he said what? And now I'm like, basically saying certain words with him and to him and laughing when he says them back. So not how I grew up, but that's how I'm doing it. 1.7 million alerts around sexual content, 2.9 million alerts around violence, notified authorities in a lot of cases. I don't know if I can give that number out, but when there was an incidence of severe harm, imminent danger to a human life, there's anxiety, there's body image and eating related alerts. There is depression, there's hate speech, there's predatory behavior, self-harm and suicidal content. That was close to 500,000 alerts around self-harm or suicidal content. 500,000 just over the course of 1 month. And for context, we help protect close to 6 million children across the nation. So it's a lot. It's a lot to process. Yeah. Did I answer the question?
Really?
You said you said that you protect about a little over 6 million.
Close to, yeah.
3.2 million on drugs and alcohol related content.
Alerts, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what was the second highest? You said 3.2 on drugs and 2.9
bullying. 2.4 was bullying, I believe.
Bullying, yeah.
So what classifies, and you don't have to go on the algorithm on the back end, but just layman's terms for everyone listening, what classifies as behavior that necessitates a alert sent?
Yeah. Well, our algorithm isn't 100% accurate 100% of the time. That said, it's pretty freaking good. And just some examples of bullying, a lot of times kids will say to each other, you should just go kill yourself. And they don't actually mean like go die by suicide, but that's like funny for them to toss that around. And it's very heavy. And so that'd be classified as bullying. Nobody likes you, everybody hates you. Why are you even here? I mean, those are some pretty overt and obvious instances of it. Calling somebody certain profane terms can constitute bullying. I mean, there's so much. There's so much, and I'm speaking anecdotally because I'm a parent that uses Bark for my 12 going on 13-year-old son. So I can speak to those alerts based on what I've seen. I don't look at, I don't look at people's information. We're very, very, very private, very secure at Bark. I can't just go in and look at the alerts that we have sent out. I can see what they were classified as. The data is anonymized and classified as to what type. But in order to really dig into the trends, we'd have to speak to our data science team to surface any trends they're seeing. And even then, they'd have to pull some anonymized data in order to be able to report on that.
You'd essentially have to hash everything. So you take away the identifiers that we can just turn them into unique identifiers, SHA-256s, instead of plain text? Because if it's plain text, it can be abused pretty easily.
Yeah. And that's, we're very, very intentional about being a platform that protects and doesn't put at risk.
Makes sense. And I'm sure that, some parents may not, care too much about that, but I think it's this interesting progression of society where more and more that people become integrated in using these different technologies. 10 years ago, sure, we had Instagram, but not everybody had an Amazon Alexa or a Google Home that was also connected and listening at all times. But as we move further down that route, it becomes almost more of a trap, more of a danger. But then there's also this growing concern about privacy. And it's weird because even earlier when you were speaking about the documentary and how 20, 30 years ago, kids, they got dirty. They played in the mud. They scraped their knees. They were out in nature. And if anything, just doing things instead of consuming things, watching things, commenting on things. And I'm interested, just your viewpoint personally, doesn't have to be as a representative of Bark, but Bark seems to be like the middle ground of parents who want their kids to be in this virtual world, but want to keep them protected. Whereas, I'm kind of the opinion where it's like, but you don't want your kid to feel excluded or they're the weird one out or, they're just, in the Stone Age. But where do you sit in kind of that balance of how much exposure you allow at all to these platforms for a child if you do that without a censor that is Bark and kind of notifying what's going on and just kind of that whole quagmire?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a great word for it. It is absolutely a quagmire. It's funny, before I became a parent, I thought I knew everything about parenting, and I thought I knew exactly how I was going to parent, and it has not panned out that way at all. Great. Good stuff. Very humbling. In my ideal household, we wouldn't even need a television. We would either be reading or making music or painting or exercising or cooking. Like, we would be living life, not just sitting there consuming at times just stupid content. And then you become a parent and you get really tired and you're like, oh, wow, TV is such a great babysitter. Like, it's amazing, or maybe your kid doesn't want to do any of those things and you actually can't make them do things. Like, I thought if I tell my child to do something, they will do it because I said so. But that's not always the case. And, so that's a fun dynamic to go through. So yeah, my ideal is so much different than my actual. Also, things change too. When my son was 9, 10, 11, I was like, there's no way he's going to have Instagram or Snapchat. TikTok didn't exist, but I would have put that in the camp as well. Like, no way, no how. Knowing what I know, absolutely not. Well, now he's there. He's 12. He's not even 13. He has Snapchat. He has TikTok. He has Instagram. And I had to make the decision to let him or not based on, all of his friends are there. If all of his friends say, go jump off a cliff, don't do that. But at the same time, it's not likened to jumping off a cliff. That's where they hang out. It's where they talk. If I want him to be able to experience, all the things that his peers are experiencing, the positive aspects of them, the conversations, the jokes, the memes, the, first love and the flirting and like all of that, like, it's happening out there. They're not really texting anymore, minimally, but not like a ton. And so I could either keep them in a bubble and say, nope, there's too many dangers, you can't do it. Or I could say, okay, I'm going to let you have this. But we're going to have a lot of conversations and they're not always going to be comfortable. And I want you to always come to me if there's ever anything that you're confused about, that you're scared about, that you have problems with. And my first course of action isn't going to be to punish you. it's actually, or take away your access. It's actually going to be to say thank you for bringing this to me, and we'll navigate it together. Now, there's a caveat there, not as regards to his mental health. Let's say I had a child who had body image issues, despite the fact that his or her friends may all be on Instagram. I'd have to really weigh the pros and cons of, the algorithm showing them, perfectly sculpted abs and diet tricks and metabolism boosting tricks and that sort of thing with their mental health. My child doesn't struggle with those things, so that wasn't a risk to me. If I knew that my child was struggling with, a porn addiction, which sounds kind of harsh, but yes, children can be addicted to porn. It's an addictive thing. Then I would have to take some precautions about allowing access to certain platforms. If I hadn't had multiple exhaustive conversations about online predators and personally identifiable information and tricky people and that sort of thing. Basically, if I didn't do what I do every day and my son knew about it and we talked about it, that also have to be something I'd rethink. And then finally, if he was struggling with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and was kind of getting further and further down that hole, we'd have to rethink his access and the time that he spent on those platforms. But we talk about it all the time. Even from a scientific standpoint of how, when you're in front of a screen, it lights up the same part of your brain that gets lit up from cocaine and sex. And so you need to understand that you need to remain in control. That device, that game, that social media platform, that blue light, that is not what holds the power in this world. You are in control. And so if that balance of power ever gets upset, we're going to have to recalibrate.
Thank you. Yeah, I can only imagine what that is like, being a parent and navigating that at this current time. I don't envy that position.
No.
No.
I don't envy that at all.
I'll take a hard pass as we slide to the metaverse. I am okay. Web3 is going to be a problem for y'all for sure.
Oh crap.
Web3. So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you just said is it depends. So
yes.
For each individual's kid, each parent set, whether it's solo or it's dual parent, together nucleus or not, it depends, right?
It totally depends. That's the TLDR.
Titania's thoughts and Bark's thoughts are probably that, hey, here's what we can do to help you. But at the end of the day, we're not going to blanket, broad stroke apply to everyone that you need to parent this way or you need to do this. Have more conversations, utilize the tools at your disposal. But ultimately, you are responsible for your kids.
Absolutely.
They're under your roof.
Yeah, every child is different. Every family dynamic is different. I will say that I have never, ever, ever heard a parent say, I waited too long. I wish I would have given my child access to XYZ. I wish I would have given them a smartphone earlier. Never heard a parent say that. Flip side, I've heard so many parents say, and I've said this myself, I feel this way as well. I wish I would have waited. I wish I didn't let my son have TikTok during the pandemic. That was a bad choice. Can't do anything about it now because of the misinformation and their algorithm that was servicing content to him that was not conducive to his optimal mental health. I wish I would have waited. So if you're struggling with what do I do, you probably won't go wrong with waiting. And if you cave earlier than you'd like, you'll probably regret it.
So with you saying that, it makes me think about the chicken and egg dynamic. Because when you were making the point about it's different for every child, and some people, if they basically have pre-existing conditions or risk factors, whether it be body dysmorphia, depression, this anxiety, this, that, and the third. From everything I've looked at and seen, I don't do, my degree is in psychology, but I don't look at these numbers every day and conduct studies. But it seems from everything I've come across in my own anecdotal experience, it's often these platforms that cause those things. Do y'all have any data that can kind of corroborate that?
We actually just partnered with the CDC. I'm pulling up the study because of our unique data set. So we released this joint national study that was published in the JAMA network, reveals how suicidal ideation and self-harm in kids and their online activities are tied. And so that was the first study of its kind that came out. And children who experience high severity self-harm or attempted suicide have previously shown significantly higher risky online behaviors. So there is a tie, and yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard, and I think we're going to see more data come out, especially with Facebook, Instagram, Snap, TikTok, YouTube, etc., all now having participated in congressional hearings. They're now being held to a standard of, look, you have this data. Your release of the data to independent third parties could help keep kids safer online and in real life. So you kind of need to do that, and I think we'll find out more as time evolves.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because obviously keeping somebody entirely off these platforms is one extreme, and often in life it's about the balance of these things. But I was thinking earlier about the platform and just platforms. I don't even know if you all really have many competitors, So, but this idea of censorship, because as I'm reflecting on it, once again, just thinking about the psychological development of children, typically, it's like you have the terrible twos, you got these different phases of life. You said, oh boy, do you? So there's these different phases of life. And if I'm even just remembering, once again, anecdotally, I was an absolute ass in middle school, early high school, right? Whether it be the aggression, just it seems that there is a period in life, and typically it's that teen, preteen, adolescence age where there are certain behaviors, dispositions that are far more common, but that's a part of the developmental phase. And it's almost like getting it out, and how much of it is in response to the hormonal changes in the system, where it's like you can't help but be moody, when your testosterone's pumping and dropping and pumping and dropping, and just all these things are happening. And so my thought, or a possibility as I'm thinking about just the platform, is that couldn't there be a potential risk that by censoring, and once again, Bark is just providing the data for these parents. These parents opted in, right? But by this data coming in and then warning the parents, and then the parents going, and oh, little Johnny, give me your device. I heard that you said this, or you said your friend was lame. Bad boy. That, and I'm being a little dramatic, obviously, right? But that by jumping in and almost too quickly preventing your child, having that leash be a little too tight, not letting them get it out their system, that they suppress it. And then that they maybe even develop self-shame because they effectively were shamed because of this behavior that otherwise their parent may not, from the parent, may not have known about. And so then they kind of shut it down in the short term, or while they're under the purview of their parents, but it still sits there and festers because they didn't get it out of their system. And so now when they move into adulthood, they have more freedom, they have more autonomy, they have a greater ability to actually execute a lot of things that may have just been thoughts that they couldn't pull off when they were younger. Doesn't that possibly become a greater danger, potentially? Once again, it's another quagmire, but how do you see that personally as a parent? And then also, how does Bark, you're the chief parent officer, how do y'all handle kind of that dichotomy?
Yeah, great questions that I'm living in real time. I was raised very conservative Christian, I'd say touches of Southern Baptist household. There was no alcohol in our house. I still have never heard my dad say a curse word, except for ass. He has said ass, but I think it was in reference to it being mentioned in the Bible. So coming from that world, in fifth grade, Beverly Hills 90210 was all the rage. And I was like the only kid that wasn't allowed to watch it, right? Because they were talking about sex and they were in high school, like God forbid that happen. And it's like, okay, well, whatever. So I was very, very, I'd say sheltered, but it didn't mean that I didn't know what was going on. Like I knew what was happening. I heard the scuttlebutt on the playground. Like I was aware. And in hindsight, it would have been really cool in a variety of ways if my parents, instead of sheltering me from it and not talking about it, could have talked to me about it. Could have said, you know what? Let's watch this together. It would have been a little cringy, but at least we could have had some conversations, and I could have asked them questions instead of turning to my friends or going to the library to look up stuff. Thankfully, I didn't have Google back then. That could have been a really crazy rabbit hole. There were so many things that we did not talk about that just did not exist. Whereas, and then I cut to freshman year of college, and I'm at UGA living my best life, not going to class. So I'm going about it a different route. I am letting my son see things, experience things, have access to things. We talk and we joke about things because I want him to know, that I know. Like, I know that kids are going to experiment with pot in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I know that you might be curious and try a cigarette. I know that you're probably going to have sex before you're married. Like I know these things. It's a lot easier to kind of embrace reality and prepare him for what all comes with that and make sure he's being safe and respectful of his body and other people's bodies versus just saying, nope, don't do that. That doesn't happen. Nope. It's not reality. Then that just involves, it can lead to lying and pain and shame, which isn't good for anybody. So in my personal opinion, I tell him how I feel about things, share with him the dangers, but also let him know, like, I know what's up and I made some bad choices. And here's what I learned from those bad choices. My parents didn't really want to share with me the mistakes they made. I think they were afraid that I would say, oh, well, you did it at that age. Like, that means I could do it too. But in reality, I would have loved to learn from both their highs and their lows. So that's my personal point. From Bark's standpoint, we are very careful to not make judgment calls. Like, we're going to alert you to the issues that you should know about as a parent. We're not going to tell you, if it's okay for your child to use certain words, if it's okay for your child to engage in this type of behavior, if it's okay for your child to consume rated R content, TV MA content, or only stick to PG content. Like, that is a personal parenting decision. Every family dynamic is different. Where we come in is as Bark is we're a tool. We're a tech tool that helps you have insights into your children's world, because that is your job. Your job as a parent, no matter how you feel, no matter your faith or your values, you need to be able to know what's happening in your child's world so that you can protect them. You have adult knowledge that is more tenured and more wise than their child knowledge, and so you've got to use that wisely. But it's hard.
Seems to be the moral of the story about this parenting thing.
Yeah, it's not for the weak.
No, not at all. So 2 things on that. This is a twofold. First, you said that Bart gives recommendations on what to do next when there is behavior. Now, can you explain the difference between what to do next and y'all instructing them from a moral standpoint or an ethical standpoint, what is right and what is wrong?
Yes, 100%. Let's take bullying first off.
Mm-hmm.
If your child is experiencing cyberbullying, or if they are the bully, or if they are just a witness or bystander. There are some things you should do. You should talk about it. So we have talking points to help start the conversation with your child, because it's not always easy. They don't always want to talk about it, So tips for starting conversations with your child. We also help you understand, like, what are your legal options if somebody is cyberbullying your child. In certain states, there are laws that can help you, and so know the cyberbullying laws in your state. There are certain hotlines that you can call to get help. Stopbullying.gov. There's just it's tips and resources. It's education. It's not you shouldn't do this, or you should do this, or you should be okay with this. It's you need to know what to do. You need to know how to document it. If your child is being bullied on a platform and the messages disappear, and here's how you take a screenshot. Here's the URL to click on to report it to this platform. It's education and it's empowerment. And that's just cyberbullying. When it comes to, let's say, a heavier topic like online predation, a lot of parents don't know what to do. What do I do? Somebody, threatened my child and said if she didn't send nudes, they were going to come kill her. So she did. What do we do? That was a phone call that I received a few weeks ago from a parent friend. I was like, okay, all right. Well, you need to contact your local law enforcement. You need to file a police report. They're going to escalate it to Special Victims Unit and Child Crimes Unit. You need to report it to NCMEC. That's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Your child probably needs some therapy. Reach out to their pediatrician. They'll be able to help you with best next steps on how to help your child navigate this and how to help you navigate this. So they're all very tangible steps we're giving. It's not your child shouldn't have sent a nude photo that makes them a bad kid. No, good kids make bad choices, and they're going to make mistakes. They're kids.
Yeah. It sounds like it's much more empowerment focused, which I think is important on kind of any journey. You can acknowledge that there's a problem or acknowledge something that's gone on, but where do you go from there? And the second part to this is for a potential new parent coming on the scene. What is your number one piece of advice as they navigate a new relationship with technology, with kids growing up from literally coming out of the womb in this age where we are consumed by tech? I mean, we are on tech right now. We have tech on our wrists. We have tech recording this. We have there's tech everywhere.
Yeah.
What do you do for a brand new parent?
Brand new parent. Oh man.
Not from Bart's perspective, but just
yeah.
What do you do?
Modeling. It all comes down to modeling. If your baby, before they can even form words, is seeing more of you from behind this thing than the eye contact, that's a problem. And, you might be like, well, I want to record everything. And maybe you're just videotaping them and taking pictures of them. But you have to think about it from their perspective. Just you having this in your hand serves as a distraction factor. They see the eye contact move away from them to this. And then they register what is the rank of importance. Basically, you have to get outside of your own self and look at it. Look at yourself from a bird's eye view. When they come talk to you, when they can finally walk and talk, again, is this thing in front of you? Are you paying attention to them? Put the freaking phone down. Put it on silent. Turn off notifications. Let them know that this might be how you communicate with your friends, but your family comes first. Or this might be how you're able to pay for your house and groceries and car and go on vacations, etc. This might be your livelihood and your work, but it's work and it does not control you. No phones at the dinner table, no phones when you're putting your child down for bed or saying prayers or reading bedtime stories. It's really all about a very healthy dose of perspective. You've got to balance living in the moment with capturing the moment. You've also got to balance the filtered life versus the curated life. If you're about to take your picture and you're like, oh, you got to move that. And, oh, that, just think about what you're subliminally communicating to them about what's important in life. And if this has too much of a presence, or the watch, or whatever, that's a problem. Also, from like a vegging out and consumption standpoint, I mean, if you're a parent and you're gaming upwards of 7 or 8 hours a day, like, that's probably not really healthy. If you're just vegging out on social media or Netflix for multiple hours a day, your children are watching you. Like, do something that has meaning. Like, it's okay to game, it's okay to binge out on Netflix, but like, also do other things that get you physically active in the real world. Please.
Good tips. James?
What would you say to those? I feel as though, actually, I know for certain, Sae'Von and I sit in a spot where we are extremely anti-predator, grooming kids, and I say that, and it's sad. I know everyone's kind of smiling here, and it's honestly messed up that we even have the initial reaction to smile, because so many people are not like that. So many people play in the gray area and play in the illegal area with children. And I think that's disgusting. But I'm curious to where you think that we, as men, as adults, as parents, you being a parent of a boy, I don't have any kids. Sae'Von doesn't have any kids. But how can we as adults be part of the solution, not the problem, even if we don't have kids? And how do we identify those around us that maybe we need to play bark for them, and maybe notify someone that they're doing some things that they shouldn't be doing? Because I feel as though, it's kind of the bystander thing, right? If we just sit around and certain individuals are doing certain things that are borderline or they're over the line, and there's innocent people being hurt, what's our responsibility?
I'm so glad you asked that. To simplify a very complicated and nuanced problem, I would say it all goes back to if you see something, say something. If you have a friend that's posting pictures of their kids, in the bathtub at bath time on social, and their private areas are not obscured by, bubbles, a DM to them might be warranted. Like, hey, I know that you meant this an innocent sharing of a beautiful childhood moment, but unfortunately, there's some really, really sick people online. And even though your settings are to share only with friends, you just never know. You just never know. And so, if you see something, say something. If people are posting their kids online too much, in ways that predators like, educating them that it's out there. It's not easy, but it's a warranted conversation. If they're posting pictures of their children in front of their kids' school, if they're taking their family photos in front of their house, and you can see what the front of their house looks like and like their street address, just little things. Let's be safer, people. Let's be safer. If you're on Instagram and you see an account that is clearly underage girls, they don't even have to be nude in provocative poses or clothing, report it. Instagram, thankfully, they finally took it down, but they had this account up called Have Bikini, stupid name. And the description was, teens in bikinis. Like, we want to showcase how beautiful teens are. And it's like, okay, well, you're not American Eagle. Like, you're not trying to sell bathing suits, And it had over 60,000 followers. And it was reported so many times, and they still didn't take it down. It took them like 6 months to take the damn account down, and just really irritating. But we have to do the work. We have to call it when we see it. And even little things like, people will still say the term child pornography. No, it is not child pornography. It is child sexual abuse material. It's just very, very small tweaks in our language and our behaviors. And I'm not encouraging everybody to be Debbie Downer, but if you see something, say something. We've got to change the way that we portray our children and do better to protect our children.
Well said. I think that sometimes people feel like they're being a Debbie Downer, or they are afraid of the judgment that may come from their friends if they know that because even to your point, somebody I was good friends with in high school, I saw a picture of her kid, on Instagram, and sometimes it's just like a tick almost where I see something like, shit, they shouldn't have done that, and it's like you said, you don't necessarily want to see the world from that angle, but it's almost like if you have the vision to see something that can be rectified before it could become a problem, and others don't, then it's like, how do we catch each other up to speed so that there's not even the flood of naked kids on Instagram, and it's just like, why are all these reels naked children? There's not, we can't put one to one together now. Like, come on now. So.
Yeah. People don't realize that was one thing that we were pretty rocked by in our undercover project, was that the younger the profile that we made, the more requests we got from predators. We thought the more mature a minor might be more appealing because they had more development, but in fact, it was the opposite. And that was really just sick. People don't know that. People don't talk about it. It's not what you see on the news. They don't want to cover that. It's too hard. It's too hard to process.
I don't even know that it's too hard to process so much as there's so many people watching the news that partake in that kind of behavior that they would be like, goodbye rating.
Yeah.
Let me turn this off because that's me and I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, realizing that it's not just some creepy dude, living in his mother's basement. It's people you trust. It's people It's doctors. It's lawyers. It's teachers. It's dentists. It's pastors. It's politicians. The people in law enforcement, even unfortunately, that are meant to protect you, are sometimes the perpetrators. So it's a very unsettling fact.
So that's a great segue, because a question I had was how often, or if there have been instances, and I don't know if you can disclose this or not, where you try to escalate these situations, and then maybe it's locally in that jurisdiction, in that precinct, but for some reason, they don't seem to really take action. They don't really seem to move on certain. It doesn't just have to be the child abuse material, but are y'all able to track that and kind of get a gauge of, all right, in this precinct, they don't tend to respond well when we send in these escalations versus this escalation? Because it's a thing.
And you don't have to give us the department or anything like that. We're just curious. Don't put a target on your back. Don't do that.
Nope. But just as a trend, so that people can understand that it's not just a plot to a movie. It's just not just postulation, but that very genuinely, people who are supposed to protect and serve often protect each other and serve their own needs.
Ooh, oh my gosh, soundbite. Yes. Wow. So one thing that was really hard to process during the pandemic was the increase in alerts we were sending around child abuse, knowing that children were no longer at school. They were at home. And so that meant that their abuser was in the home. And we couldn't send the alert to the abuser in the home. So we had to send it somewhere else. So that's just a small snapshot into the dynamics we have to navigate. Less so with regards to precinct and law enforcement. I can't really speak to that. But just knowing how much abuse happens within the home. And when children are not at school, in physical school, where a teacher or a counselor can spot some warning signs and get them help. It's really, really sad.
Are y'all at a point where you feel comfortable with the process, the system y'all have in place when it is that scenario? Because it seems okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely, that's what that's our mission. It's our mission is to keep kids safer online and in real life. And when you realize what's happening, you got to do something about it. And we're so thankful to our law enforcement partners and our child health and wellness partners that help us navigate that nuance.
Because it seems too that whoever those parents might be, that would be very unwise to use something like Bark, but be an abuser. Maybe they think they can outsmart however your tech works, but that just seems like a really odd decision to make.
Uphill battle there. Doesn't seem like maybe the smartest thing.
Yeah, I don't want to speak on the record about that just because I don't want to tip them off to.
Oh, I dig it. I dig it.
Hey, yeah, you don't have to say anything.
I dig it.
No, that's all good.
Yep. Everybody use Bark. Everybody use Bark.
For sure.
Titania, so there's awareness that needs to be brought to a lot of things to do with child protection and kids and parenting and what have you. What do you think the highest priority is in all these buckets? Where does awareness need to be brought to first?
The prevalence, just how common these issues are. So you need to realize just how common all of these issues are in children, and yes, your kid, and yes, that age. And that's a segue to the not my kid. Like everybody thinks at some point, like, oh, that'll never happen to my kid, or if something's happening to my kid, I'll know because it's my kid. Like I'll know. You might not know. A very good chance you won't know. So address the data, learn the data, own the fact that good kids make bad choices, and it absolutely could be your kid. So it's really just a dose of reality.
Is that not the same line of logic? People saying "not my kid" as they're saying "not my friend." No man in my circle could be an aggressor of sexual assault. No, like isn't that just the same thing?
Yeah, totally. You basically just have to realize that I don't even know. Nobody's perfect. We're all humans.
If I could, a phrase I've heard before is anybody is capable of anything given the right circumstances.
Exactly. Trust no one.
And
verify everything.
Yeah, trust but verify.
Always. What role do you think, and I know we're coming up on time, we want to be respectful of it, but what role do you think that Disney, that Netflix, that Hulu, that these streaming platforms, what role do you think that they play in this? What role do you think that they play in the shows Cuties and Eyes Wide Shut with a child trafficking ring, almost satanic in rituals? What do you think that these movies are doing to kids, to parents, to adults that didn't think that they may ever be an aggressor, find themselves in a situation where they've just let a little bit too much evil in?
That's a doozy of a question. I think the media in general, culture in general, has hypersexualized girls at a younger and younger age. If you just take a comparison of a group of girls, let's say at age 12 from like 1980, and a group of girls at age 12 today, big difference. Yes, our culture has hypersexualized young women in particular. that's a problem. I also think that the media culture in America specifically needs to get back to a place of defaulting to clean and opting in to more versus the opposite. Now, you know, when you get cable in your home or you sign up for Netflix or whatever, or you get an iPhone, the ratings and the filters aren't set to safe and G rated. Like, it's just a free for all. You have to do the work to actively implement filters and set those parameters for, like, hey, we've got kids in the house, or I've got an issue that I would like to avoid encountering this type of content. Like, go ahead and just set me up for success, for like the safest, cleanest exposure. And if I want to opt in because it is a free country and I'm an adult and I want to watch what I want to watch, I can do that. It's backwards. It's completely backwards. We need to move to a place where it's just generally safe. And if you are wise enough to be able to manage mature content, you can do that in ways that are age gated and appropriate versus just free for all everything. We're all pushing the envelope. It takes more and more to shock. Movies are more gruesome and more violent from both just a violent standpoint and a sexual violence standpoint. Like, it's all just, there's a bunch of desensitization, and it's alarming.
Couldn't agree more. Well, as we're wrapping this up, first off, honestly, we both want to thank you for your time and for being here today and for being so honest. Because goodness gracious, Lord, man, it's like the flip of what you just said. It's either things are free for all, or everybody's trying to be so cookie cutter and stay in the box. And like, nope, I don't talk about that. I don't talk about this. These are the talking points. So that we can actually have a more substantive conversation. So thank you so much for that. Anything, calls to actions, things you want to make people aware of? I know there's a few things you mentioned, like the study y'all recently did with the CDC. Everybody should go check that out. But if you can just let the audience know where they should go, how they can learn more about Bark, anything else you want to leave the people with.
For sure. Thank you all again for having me. To anybody who is listening to this, thank you for spending this time with us. You could be doing all kinds of things with your life, and you've chosen to spend your time with us. So we appreciate that, and thank you for that. If you're struggling with parenting in a tech world, whether or not you use Bark, there's a free resource called Parenting in a Tech World. It's a Facebook group. Ironically, it is a group on Facebook, but you can go there. There's over 150,000 parents there. Request to join the group and get some really quality help in real time from other parents that are dealing with it like you are. If you're interested in getting Bark for your family, really easy, just go to bark.us. That's the website. You can sign up for a free trial and protect your family online. If you want to connect with me, I am such a social media nerd, like in a good way, I hope. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest. If it's new and coming out, I'll be there. Just find me by my name, Titania Jordan. That's where I am in all the places, and I love to connect with you, support you, engage with you.
Perfect. James?
We got to do better. I believe that we have a responsibility, all of us. If you're listening to this, if you're existing in this world, and to be part of the solution, not the problem. Some of that comes in changing where your head is at. And I want to thank you again for coming on, Titania. It has been a pleasure. And I appreciate you being willing to deviate from talking points, as Sae'Von stated. I think it's wonderful. Oftentimes, someone that's very, very forefront in the media, you have the questions that are basically going to be asked, and you respond kind of and slip the punches that you don't want to hit you. And I very much appreciate you being willing to just have an open conversation, give space to your thoughts as they come, and not just hit us back with response A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah, that's boring. Nobody needs that.
Definitely is. Well, cool. Well, that's all from me. Sae'Von, you got anything you want to leave us with?
No. Just this is one of the most important episodes I think we've ever done. So thank you for just your perspective on it, giving us truly that insight, because you are day in, day out, focusing to not be a bystander, but to be an active participant in the solution of these problems in this situation. So please keep doing the work that y'all are doing. I'm feel better having had this conversation with you and knowing that you're on the inside helping guide how this goes. So that gives me great confidence in what y'all are doing. And it's cool that you're from the city, that you're from Atlanta. So we can do more than just make trap music. So
Love it. Thanks, y'all.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I think that's going to be it. Thank you all for listening. You can catch us anywhere on any streaming platform or on YouTube. We have all these chopped into small snippets on YouTube as well. If you want to see Titania's face and not just hear her voice and see those facial expressions, you can catch us really anywhere on YouTube. We've got tons and tons of content there. But thank you all again for listening. And thank you, Titania, for coming out. We're going to sign off and we will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.